Hello. In this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about the early stages of relationship building, assessment, and intake. In the first session, or even before the first session, we're gathering information about our clients. At some agencies, you might find that there's a formal intake form that clients are either requested to fill out before meeting with a therapist, counselor, helper, or child and youth care worker, or these forms and intake can be done in session, so while you're meeting. These are the two main approaches. One, we send out a questionnaire and an intake form, and clients input all their personal information, demographic information, reason for the visit, strengths, relationships. It could be very short and or very in depth, and it's done before the session, and they bring that in. Or sometimes the intake is done in vivo, so while you're meeting with somebody, you might have the questionnaire in your hands and you'll be asking them questions, or you can hand it over and ask them to fill it out in the waiting room or when they're meeting with you. In either case, it's very often necessary before seeing a helper to have some information about a client and also to have them complete informed consent and confidentiality and other ethical documentation. Regardless if this is done before the session or during the session, some of the basics that we're going to collect are the name and age of our client, um, their gender or sex, their ethnic background, religion, relationship status, education level, employment status, um, maybe the referral source. And then we're getting into more of the questions about the presenting problem. So this can be from a referral source. So you might have a diagnosis or an assessment coming from an external source, or the client themselves can be either qualitatively describing what's going on for them, or they might complete a questionnaire, a checkbox, a list to identify what symptoms or what presenting problems or concerns they're meeting with you on the basis of. In the first few sessions, some other information that I like to think about asking is about a client's previous experience with helping, whether that's formal psychotherapy, if they had a youth worker, if there's somebody in their life that they confide in or have a mentor. Um, I'll often want to get a sense of their history of getting help. So this will elicit their experience. So that's very important because it gives us a sense of where they're at with the helping relationship. So it might be very positive and they're looking forward to helping, or it'd be quite negative and we might want to listen to what the concerns are, or what might be getting might become a challenge to building trust. Um, so this is a really important conversation I like to have early in my relationships, is what people's previous experience with helping relationships are. Secondly, I'd like to know what a client's perspective on the problem is. So rather than taking for granted that we both understand what depression might be, or what it means to be living in a foster placement. I want to know how a client is experiencing their problem, what meaning they're making from it, and how they understand the origins or the precipitating factors or what's keeping the problem in place. So you can interview from a number of different angles, but I really want to get an in-depth view of how my client feels about the problem, how they think about the problem, what meaning they're making of the problem. So I'm going to get a rich description of their perspective on what's bringing them into relationship with me. I want to know, in conjunction with that, what they've tried so far. Again, talking about previous helping relationships, but I also want to hear about how they're coping with it, what they find useful or helpful, what strengths they have that they're learning to leverage on their behalf in relation to the problem. And then one of the most interesting questions that sometimes I I ask to myself and not explicitly ask to my client, depending on their level of insight and their experience about thinking therapeutically. I'm asking myself, why is the client seeking out help now? Now, if there was an immediate trauma, life event, loss, then it's quite clear. There's been an abrupt change in a client's life, and they're often seeking support to restore balance, move forward, heal. And so that's quite clear if there's something that has changed recently. Then it's quite clear why they might be seeking help now. But for more long-standing issues, if somebody's been dealing with addictions for the better part of 3, 4 years, why did they come to therapy today? Why are they here now? If they had a loss a decade ago, what brings them in now? What's precipitating? Either has the coping failed and now they're seeking new ways of coping and managing? Has something changed in their life that's made therapy or helping possible that previously was a barrier to them accessing support? I'm really curious about what's changed environmentally and also what is changed intrapsychically. So, what's going on for them so that they're now able to access or they are willing to access help? And lastly, what I'm looking for is an understanding of their context. And now that's their immediate context from the people they live with, their work situation, their family, and all the way to their broad social context. Again, we mentioned their socioeconomic status, perhaps their cultural identification or ethnic identification, um, any um, any issues that might put them in a marginalized position within society, factors of discrimination, racism, colonization. I'm trying to understand who they are as an individual within both an immediate social milieu context and a broad social context. And that broad social context will alert me to the requirements I need to educate myself on in terms of understanding who they are as people within a cultural and social and political world. I might need to brush up on some of my understandings of a particular context. I want to think about perhaps the language that we share and what barriers there might be around communication or what possibilities there are for me, again, to learn more about their particular language or discourse. Um, I'm listening I'm listening very closely to word choice, to the way that a client um, puts their experience within a social context, within a linguistic context, a political context. Are they themselves thinking in this way, or are they looking at whatever brings them into relationship with you in a very personal or individual way? Is it a relational issue? So I'm thinking very much about their immediate relationships. Who's going to be a support to them? Um, who in their circle might support the changes in their lives that they're undertaking? And then, if the problem is relational, I want to identify any dangers or risks, and create plans of safety with a client, because often when people undergo a change process, it upsets the homeostasis or the balance within systems in their life, within their relational context. And these disruptions can reverberate and create backlash, can create other challenges or throw other systems in chaos. So I want to really understand the relational milieu and think about when I plan an intervention or set goals with a client, what the what the fit is for their context in terms of the changes that they're trying to bring out in their lives and how that'll fit in their cultural, political, social milieu, and also how that's going to impact their immediate relationships and what can we anticipate in terms of support or challenge at that level. So these are some of the assessment intake pieces that I'm thinking about, what kind of information I'm looking for. And always, by doing this, I'm trying to bring a rapprochement with my client, an alliance, and a relationship building. Thank you.